You're listening to the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
Well, after a week hiatus, we are back. Welcome to another episode of Hangin with the Hitman. I'm Todd Gilbert.
And I am Brett Fortney, the Hitman.
Man, yeah, sometimes, adulting gets in the way of fun, and we had to take a break for a week. But if I knew when I was 16 and in such a hurry to be a grown-up what adulting was really going to be, I'd have been like, chill down, Todd. Don't worry. Don't be in a rush.
And then mix in there that age thing where I'm almost 57 years old, and every morning I feel like I'm about 69, 75.
Dang.
Is what I feel like every morning. I got to take some Motrin first, you got your prep. You got your morning routine and
your
lots
morning
of medication at the beginning of it.
Do you go to McDonald's and get your senior coffee?
I was actually thinking we could probably do that now. We could share that and maybe share a hash brown. A hash brown.
A half of one,
No, you just get half each and share and split it right down the middle. And ask for a knife to, cut it.
And then we can go to the park and watch the birds,
Yes, yeah.
A fulfilling morning. But
yeah.
So today I've seen a couple posts of people talking about this subject and just this band overall recently. And today we're going to be talking all about the Beatles. And particular one subject we're going to touch on is, are they in fact overrated? Something that we could go off on for 3 hours, but we won't, I promise. But before we get to that, I think it is time for our album of the week recommendation, and we're turning that over this time to the Hitman, as I did the first one.
Okay.
So lay it on us.
Let me get this ready real quick. I was at a different angle than I was a few minutes ago. Okay, so I think it was maybe earlier last year, mid last year, like 22 or whatever. I started recognizing that all this Tom Petty Wildflowers stuff was coming out.
The reissues?
Remember the reissues. Mm-hmm. And then was this, years get mixed up with me, but when Record Store Day happened and this came out, which is the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers Angel Dream album, which were kind of like songs that were recorded for that movie She's the One.
Yeah.
Back in, which all these songs were recorded around the same time.
Right.
And so what I'm talking about, though, is this Wildflowers is the one that I have here with, it's called Wildflowers and all the rest. But it's still not complete if you don't have the one and only Rick Rubin.
Yes.
He always brings out the best in people, I feel. But anyway, this version, there's so many different variations of this. But first of all, the album just by itself has, I think, like 16 songs on it, maybe. Yeah. Just in it, by itself.
Right.
But on this one, you get all the rest, which are 10 more songs that were just left off for some reason that probably were good enough, but just didn't have enough room. They want to make a triple album or whatever. But so, and then on top of that, I've been doing some researching, and it's a little confusing, but I'm trying to get the best possible version for my next box set thing. I just want to get the most that I can, but I don't want to get doubles of anything anymore. Because I always end up getting doubles. So
what
I've ordered,
wasn't You Don't Know How It Feels from that album? From Wildflowers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What were the singles off of that?
You Wreck Me was on there.
Oh.
It's Good to Be King.
Oh.
The song called It's Good to Be King.
Yep.
And then another one that you might know called Honey Bee, which is kind of It's really fun. And then let me think. Maybe Crawling Back to You might have been a single. I don't remember, but I
But
know
those other
those
three were
first three
big
for
ones.
sure.
Yeah, those were big singles.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that there wasn't enough like good songs that have more singles because I don't really remember. I should have looked it up before we did this. I don't,
Well,
but
also the amount of singles doesn't
it doesn't.
necessarily
Yeah,
mean anything because there
no,
are back in the day, people used to make albums that every song was just as good as the singles on the radio. And
no. Wait.
I know, I
Hey,
know, I know.
don't be crazy. What?
And,
No, you're lying to me. What day is this? Is this backwards day? It's
it could be.
backwards day is a joke. It's a joke.
No, but you know, you look at Michael Jackson's Thriller, for example. Every single song
Yeah.
on that album, and we've talked about it before. Every single song could have been a top 10 single. You know what I mean?
Only two that weren't or could have been.
Yeah.
They were both Rod Temperton songs. The ones that were left as non-singles on that album were both Rod Temperton songs. Rod Temperton doesn't write bad songs, and they are both great. One's a ballad, and I feel like it was like the best vocal of all time by him. But whatever, we're not talking about him.
But
so
yeah,
much.
no,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you that Wildflowers is just, it's an amazing record. And what I like about it is kind of like what I like about the Pearl Jam Yield album. Wildflowers has this rawness to it. It's not overproduced. There's not a bunch of like frills and stuff like that. It's just a straight up rock band in a room making a record. You know what I mean?
Can I just say this? That I just thought of this. And two people are great. There's not any way I'm taking away from either one of them. I feel like, in a way, thinking about it, Rick Rubin is the opposite David Foster.
Yeah.
You know, where you get emotion. They both have emotional music. I just listen. I'm sorry. I listened to Celine Dion's All by Myself. That end part gave me goosebumps.
It's a great,
you know
it's
I mean?
a great
that's
single.
that music. They're both able to bring out, and Rick Rubin is for that. You know, he can take the bare bones of what music is and still make you feel something.
I mean,
you know, there's different music that makes you feel, you know, different reasons because of the symphony coming in over here. But, you know, basically Rick Rubin makes you feel something with basic instruments and not a lot of fluff.
yeah, I mean, he got Black Sabbath their first Grammy. You know, and the Black Sabbath, the 13 won a Grammy.
Yeah, 13.
Yeah, and that that album's incredible.
Yeah.
And I mean, all the Chili Peppers stuff, like my favorite two Chili Peppers albums. My favorite two Chili Peppers albums are Rick Rubin, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and Californication. Like, all the, like you said, all the Johnny Cash stuff. Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP 2, which is my favorite Eminem album. That's Rick Rubin. Like, he's amazing. He really is.
Yeah.
But so our album of the week, go and stream it,
I'm just
download
saying,
it, buy it. I know it's a weird concept.
I'm just gonna say though, this one right here, when you can find it on sale, it's it's 3 records in here. It's the first album, just the album by itself, takes up 2 records just because there's 16 songs just on the album Wildflowers. But then there's a third one that has all the rest. So it feels like when you have all the rest on there, it just feels like all of these if that's what this album should be, is this.
Yeah.
But they do have, like I said, different versions. There's a alternate takes one. There's a box that has the one that I got coming that has like demos and then some live tracks and that kind of stuff and whatever. But that's what I'm getting, and I just thought about that. I thought I've been listening to this week, and that's why I thought that could be an album that we would talk about this week. So there you go. Tom Petty, Wildflowers. I think it came out in 95, 94, somewhere around that. It's a great album. It really is. I'm done.
So get yourself a copy today, man. Get on Amazon and buy it. Go to your local record store and get it. You can stream it and make sure Tom Petty's estate gets no money. You know,
I'm gonna let you.
do the cool thing and
They
support
have
it.
for some reason, different copies of this they're on sale on Amazon right now. That's why I bought the box set thing because they're on sale. So that makes it okay. But yeah, I bought that on sale
So
on
you could
Amazon.
too.
So yeah, the $50 CD box set I'm getting for 30. So you know what I
Nice.
mean?
So
Okay.
yeah, Tom Petty's Wildflowers, officially our album of the week.
Yes.
So there we are.
And hey,
Yeah.
Todd, you know what time it is?
What time is it?
It is?
Is it sippy
It's
time?
time for a sippy sip.
It's sippy time.
Sippy
We
sip.
gotta get our drink right. 1 second.
Hold on. Let me get my. Look, you got it. I might slurp a little bit. Hold on.
Today's show brought to you courtesy by powered by Vitamin Water and the Circle water bottles. Let me tell you, I've had this thing for a couple years now.
Yeah, I
I
remember
have
when
a
you got
stainless
it.
steel one, but it helps me drink so much more water because you're supposed to drink a lot of water.
Yes.
And it's like healthy flavor cartridges that you put in the top of the bottle, and your water goes through the cartridge and flavors your water while you're drinking it.
Nice.
I think this Walmart has it now.
Yes. Oh, Walmart does?
Mm-hmm.
I drink Powerade because originally when it came out, it was cheaper than Gatorade, so that's
it's
why I got
Powerade.
it.
I thought it was vitamin water you were drinking. It's Powerade. Okay.
No, I drink Powerade.
Nice.
But it actually,
not
to
a sponsor.
Not yet. But I'm just joking. I don't want to be a sponsor. I just like it a lot, though. Powerade, I drink the zero because of I don't need the sugar or whatever.
Right.
But it's way less salty than the competitor that you might have. I'm not going to even mention that name,
right.
but the competitor that might be more popular than them. But so yeah, I do drink one of those a day because I sweat a lot, bro.
And unlike the competitors, according to the commercials anyway, Powerade doesn't make you sweat weird colors, you know.
Does it do that?
No.
Huh.
In the commercials they do, it's weird.
That's funny. I do one of those a day just because I do sweat a lot of times through the night. I have the night sweats. Not too bad. Only if the cat is on one side and a big pillow is on the other. Then I sweat, man. But, so I need to, regain my electrolyte. So I do one of those a day.
It's what plants crave. It's important.
Is it?
It is.
I didn't know you were such the horticulturist.
I mean, a little bit. I got a green thumb sometime. No, not really. But moving on, though, to the main event of today's episode. So I've seen through the years many, many, many times people dogging on the Beatles because they don't think that they're that big of a deal. They think they're overrated. They don't think they were that influential. And it's kind of the popular thing to be like, oh, the Beatles are overrated. They're not that great. It's like the people that say that Metallica hasn't done anything good since Cliff Burton, which we've talked about before. They're trying to come off as edgy and whatever. But at the end of the day, like, as a musician and also a humongous fan of music, like we both are, I don't understand. I look at so many artists that go back and directly credit them as their huge influence. You go back and you look at people like Dave Grohl or Kurt Cobain, people like, Ozzy Osbourne and U2 and David Bowie and all these humongous legends all say they were inspired to be musicians because of the freaking Beatles. Billy Joel says that all the time. Yeah. Billy Joel says he never would have been a musician if he wasn't for the Beatles.
Okay, here's the thing I'm thinking about here. While you're saying that, I'm thinking about this. My back in the day when my grandparents, in the 50s when Elvis came on and they saw it, they're like, he's not going to be anybody and he's just, whatever. And I think they're afraid of it because it was newer music to their generation,
Sure.
So, so the next thing that kind of shook it up like that was the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
So then with that, you get people that were of their age or younger, which are the people that are coming up. The other people are kind of, they're getting older and they're going to stick with their, in the mode, Glenn Miller stuff, But the new generation had this new sound, and everybody within that age group of, let's say, 21 to 25 maybe, and under and younger even, because they attracted kids too. So everybody in that time frame watching the Ed Sullivan Show and listening on it are going to be influenced one way or another. And if they see there's not one person that I know that have came up in that time period that have not said that the Ed Sullivan Show experience was what made them be a musician. And we're talking about very famous people here. Very famous people here. Ozzy is one of them.
Yeah, and they were pioneers in so many things that we hear today that maybe a lot of people don't realize, which is fine because time has gone by so far. But a lot of the things in rock music or just music in general, a lot of that was pioneered by them. It was started by, Sun Studios and Elvis taking music that Elvis grew up with, like they show in the film, black blues and R&B and stuff like that, and kind of making it into what started to become rock and roll, But then the Beatles took that and amplified it even more and got more experimental and got more, I guess, proficient with it, I guess you could say. But people that say, oh, Ringo's not that great of a drummer, to hell with that. Ringo's freaking amazing because a lot of the stuff that you hear him do, nobody did before him.
Right.
You know what I mean? There were some jazz musicians that threw around stuff like that, but in modern rock and pop music, you never heard stuff like that. And then Ringo came along and played what he felt fit the tune, and you get what became rock drumming.
See what that is? Yeah, he did. Sometimes he would do fills just as the beat of the song. The whole song would be just like a fill of a song, but that's what he felt that the song needed. And if it was a Paul or John song, then if they thought that was what, because there's sometimes too where there'd be something that they weren't feeling, and Ringo would say, let's kind of maybe speed it up a little bit, or he would make suggestions, and then the song you hear now would have a total different song because Ringo started doing this drum beat in one of them, and I think you can hear it actually on one of the anthologies, is Strawberry Fields.
Oh,
there's like demos on there where he's actually talking. He's almost doing like a death march. I don't know. That's not like it's a march, but
it's weird.
Kind of a thing he's doing that in Strawberry Fields. It's very weird. Then he changes it, and then it's good. It's like he did that. I don't know. He just did have a different style. Proficiency. Technically, he wasn't the best drummer. Probably he was left-handed. He would always come over and do this kind of thing, and probably I don't know. It's just there's some style.
There's some great left-handed drummers though. Phil Collins, Carter Buford.
Yeah.
But also, But also, people will say things, because Ringo's not doing a bunch of tricks and crazy crap all the time, that he's not a good drummer, and that's a common misconception from even people that are musicians. Sometimes it's not about how fast or how complex or how weird or how whatever you can play. It's serving the song that exists. It's playing what is needed for the song. It's not, about what a lot of us call musical masturbation, where you're like, oh, look, I can play 85 notes in this 5 seconds. Nobody cares. You cannot find, in my opinion, a time, a longevity like that lasted, that's still amazing 20 years from now. A single that was so huge and so big where it's played like that. You're never gonna find that.
Mhm.
Like a good friend of mine always used to say, "There ain't no money past the fifth fret." Like
True.
it's about serving what the song needs at the moment. And to me, the sign of a great drummer is being able to sit back in that pocket or in that groove and not necessarily even do a bunch of drum fills or anything, but what they're doing defines the song still. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a very good representation of what you're saying. I'll give you 2 songs. One of them would be Tomorrow Never Knows. If you put a regular drum beat to that song, it wouldn't sound right. It almost doesn't sound right now, but it's good. But it's good. But the drum, I'm trying to think of a 4 on the floor could actually work with that song.
But even though it's an awkward beat, it's still consistent.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's still a groove. It's just in a weird, different time,
And they would throw him off, too, a lot with writing songs like All You Need Is Love is in probably one of the most weird time signature songs. I don't even know what that is. I don't know. It sounds like a waltz for a minute, then it changes back. But so he always just fit the song, and there's no way that a guy that was technically trained or only had in his brain this is how you do things would be able to do what he did. Because he was the man with that. They all just fit together very well. That's, they all fit together well.
And
they weren't
chemistry,
all the best musicians, but all of them together made them great.
But chemistry is huge, And I mean, I'd say out of all of them, Paul is probably the most, the best musician as far as like instruments and stuff. Because Paul played literally every instrument, you know what I mean? Yeah. But they were all prolific songwriters. They all sang. They all, I guess I just like I understand that the generations of like the last couple generations, the Beatles maybe not be a band they like or something or stuff that they enjoy, which is totally fine and understandable.
Right.
Like there's music that comes out right now that I would rather, slam my wiener in the door than listen to. But but that's just because it's not for my it's not my music. You know what I mean?
That's what I've always said. I've always said this. I have said, and because there's 2 kind of ways you can look at this. For number one, I feel like people have a time period where the music that is out at the time and played on popular radio to sell records for the mass, for the record labels to make money and all that stuff. That age group, I feel, would be about from like 15 to about 25, let's say, right there. Maybe 30-ish, because that's when things started to kind of change with me too. 30 started getting me into the 90s, and music had changed, and there's a lot more hip-hop and a lot more Atlanta and that kind of stuff, and it just didn't impress me not much. I'm not the biggest, I'm not the biggest Jermaine Dupri fan. But for other reasons. I'm just joking. But anyway, so your music is to about 15 to 30. You got about 15 years of your era. Now, you like the era that your mom and dad played when you were a kid, so you like that old stuff still.
Yeah.
But this new stuff coming up, you don't understand. It doesn't matter what generation you're coming up in. It's always going to be different because people are changing the way music is heard. And because you got to evolve to stay relevant and fresh, you have to evolve. So that's what music does. So once music starts evolving, you're like, I don't like change. I like my music to sound like this. And that's when the new generation of kids come up and hear that new stuff on the radio. And it's just a progression, and that's why we don't like the new stuff, because it's not our music anymore. That's how I've always thought about it, and that's what it's not our music, and that's fine. But still, can I just ask a question? Like, how are you supposed to dance to that? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, but
how
people don't always want to dance.
I mean, but they don't want to dance, and maybe they're going to come up with another dance that's just a little less movement. Because that's what it seems to be. Just a little less. Doing this is fine with them now. This is all they need to do, man.
The slow side to side shuffle, But
they need to do all this.
But for me, you always get the people that like grew up with a certain kind of music or studied a certain kind of music or went to school for it or whatever, and they always get on this thing of, well, it's just not a good song and it's not well written and it's not, this is just crap and blah blah blah, and like, to a degree, I think everybody gets like that and whatever, but like, I honestly, there's no wrong way to make a song. If you make a song and it reaches people, it's a song. It could be a guy mumbling over a beat for 5 minutes with a chorus that you can sort of understand the lyrics. But if it becomes hugely popular and people love it, is that not a song? Is it not important? Yes. You know what I mean? It may not reach me, but it reaches somebody. And isn't that what music's supposed to be about in the first place?
I think so. Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
for sure.
Putting all that into the question of them being relevant and them being the Beatles being a big deal and influential, I think when you combine all that, the answer is yes. I think they are a very important and not overrated band in the grand scheme of the history of stuff, because I think when people use the term overrated, what a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are meaning they just don't like the songs.
Right.
But that isn't relevant to the argument, in my opinion.
For sure. What I was
I don't like Barry Manilow that much, but you're not going to tell me he isn't influential.
Yeah, I was going to ask next time, you're at the CD shop, if you can look for, there's a couple reissues of the Barry Manilow stuff I wanted to get. I'm serious. But anyway, I'm serious. Some of the early stuff. Mm-hmm. But here's what I'm trying to say is that when I was, I don't know, 3-4 years old, my mom had the 45 of, I don't remember if this was the A side or B side, but P.S. I Love You, which was one of the early 63-ish, 64, 63-ish songs. Yeah. And so from there, I found that this 45 that had this, I don't even think I could read, but the same thing was on this other record over here that had these guys on the front where it was like black and just their faces and stuff. And that was my mom's record. So I got to listen to Meet the Beatles for the first time, through it. I played records when I was very young. So, they were just, that album, I didn't really know much more about them. But then I started back, because I liked what my mom liked. So I started listening to some of the stuff that my friends had, the Red and the Blue albums and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I just decided, like, there's not any way possible that these 8 years had all these great songs. They were there's a couple, but mostly I enjoy almost every song on every album except for number 9. I could probably get rid of that one because that's not even a song. It's not even a song.
But when you start letting your girlfriend influence your band, your songwriting, that kind of stuff happens.
That sounds like a whole nother topic we could talk on, but
we'll get there.
Because but Yoko, but Yoko was, actually Paul says good things about her now, weirdly. And
now he's old. He's old and rich and doesn't care anymore. So
he don't care. That money's been figured out. Right. And I just want to say Side note too, since I'm wearing this shirt, I might as well say that in 1985 is when Michael outbid Paul McCartney for the songs for
85?
47.5 million. 1985.
Okay.
47.5 million dollars was what he bid, and I think Paul might have did like 45 or something. Like,
Dang.
it just, that's how that works. But here's the thing, I've spent so much time and money and just my whole, but they deserve it to me. And I don't want it to coming off as this totally opinionated, but it is. But if you realize the influence that every band that you like now, not you personally, I'm just talking about the general public, most of them, even the metal guys and even all of them, like not all of them, of course. But see, what you need is innovators. And a few bands have now moved up and changed music some more after this. But for the longest time, up until maybe recently, we've stuck with what the Beatles laid out for rock and roll bands.
Yeah.
Is how you kind of do this. And there hasn't been a lot of bands that have changed the style. So once they do that, the Beatles might not be as relevant because Nirvana changed music for people when, that came out. So it happens, and you get new generations of fans, and so they might not be the all-time greatest band ever, but the fact is they're not overrated, people. They've done so much trailblazing for everything that came after them.
Well, and even
they took Elvis and they went from there and they changed it.
Well, and even as solo artists too, they were still hugely influential. I mean, you look at the stuff that like John Lennon did as a solo artist. You look at songs like Imagine and Woman and Jealous Guy and Instant Karma and Give Peace a Chance, which if I remember, it wasn't Give Peace a Chance was released around the same time as Let It Be, right? Wasn't that roughly the same time? Yeah. Where
68-ish. It was 68-ish because it was the For Peace thing that they were doing.
Yeah, where John and Yoko spent, what was it, like a week or so in bed?
Might have been 69. 68, 60, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
During one of Yoko's wonderfully art concept ideas. And man, let me tell you, I gotta mention this before we move on to Paul as a solo musician. Previously on an episode on our channel, Power Tripping Through the 80s that Sean and Jason do, they got on the subject of Yoko Ono. And they were talking about her singing voice. And we'll just play a clip here to show you what they said.
Listen, I'm still trying to eradicate fucking Mr. T and his rap song out of my head. I can't put Yoko Ono on top of that. It'll make my head explode. I have no doubt.
And this is not me being mean. This is me being 100% serious. If you were to take your full-size pickup truck and run over and stop on the tail of a cat, that is the exact sound you get out of Yoko Ono. And I am not exaggerating.
So I don't necessarily disagree with Sean right there because I tell you, like, God bless John for really trying to support his woman and what she loves and really believing in her. And I think that is a beautiful, wonderful thing until you put the needle down on the record. I have the album Double Fantasy, right? It was an album. It was John's last album, and John's songs on Double Fantasy are beautiful. They are amazing. Only problem is Yoko has a song after every one of his songs. So listening to that,
every other.
So listening to that album is exhausting because I have to sit by the turntable, and when just like starting over ends, I got to pick the needle up, move it past the Yoko song, put the needle back. Like, I wouldn't even call what she does singing. She's just screaming for however long the song is. Like, I I can't think of a better analogy that Sean had, but like, it's painful to even listen to, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what she's going for. I don't know, but she's still in her 70s or whatever.
Ugly,
does that
beautiful, ugly, beautiful? No,
maybe,
yeah.
But like, I don't even understand what she's trying to do. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's performance art. It's performance art.
I guess
that's what it is. It's performance art.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. So they released, they recorded a whole bunch of songs for the Double Fantasy album, right? So they both did, and they get every other song. Which I don't know. Would you have? Side note: would you have enjoyed the album and not listen to side 2 if you put all John's on one side and side 2 would be her?
Yeah.
Probably not. They knew that, and they knew that they were going to play side 2. So what they did, kind of what you can do if you'd like. There's an album with the songs that didn't make Double Fantasy, and one of them is "Nobody Told Me," which is also a really cool song that was recorded at the same time. So you can make your best 10 to 15 songs if you take the album that came out right before that or after that they put out with his songs that didn't go on to the album, which also has "Grow Old With Me" on it. So there you go. "Grow Old With Me" is on there too, because that's just a basic studio cassette recorder, but they added some instruments to it. It sounds pretty nice. A lot of weddings were done with that. I used to do weddings and people were like, "Do you have that John Lennon song?" In my life, John Lennon, as a Beatle, has had more songs for me to play at weddings than any other Beatle has.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't know why that is, but like my life,
Twist and Shout
was huge.
Twist and Shout?
Yeah. At weddings, John always did better with his songs. I don't know. Slow and fast. Yeah.
But then you go, so we could go on about John and Yoko for hours, but I'm not gonna. We'll end the Yoko thing, the John and Yoko thing with fuck Mark David Chapman, the man that shot and killed him. What a piece of human garbage. But then you get on to Paul, and Paul McCartney went on to do the band Wings with such stuff as Silly Love Songs, Band on the Run, Live and Let Die. One of my favorites was 1985?
Yes.
Yeah. It's such a jam.
1985.
Yeah.
1985.
And in reality, Paul...
Let him in.
Yeah. Paul, for me, out of all 4 of them, Paul, for me, was the hit maker. He was the one who understood how to make radio songs and how to make pop songs and how to make songs that everybody can sing along to, that they're fun, that they're boppy. Like, John was more the art side, which is awesome too. There's nothing wrong with that. But as far as the 2 of them solo, Paul always resonated with me more, just because I really liked his stuff. Like, I do like a lot of John's stuff too, but to me, Paul's is the more, I don't want to say safe, because that sounds like an insult, but it's like, when Paul puts an album out, it's gonna, you're gonna at least like a few songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you've come to expect a certain quality from him every time he puts something out. You know what I mean?
Although he changes every once in a while, he doesn't have a very good sense of a melodic structure and where we think the song should go, which makes the melody come through to us easier. He has an easier melody. With John, he would do some changing, like I said earlier, with time changes and stuff. There you go. One of the songs right there is "All You Need Is Love" is John. But it's such a time changer, and it's such a different sounding song that he was so experimental. So I feel like too, like he was the experimental guy. Yeah. And then we played it safe for the hits. And he was a cute one, and so he got the hits. No, they both had hits. They all had hits. They all had hits.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I've never been a person that thinks a hit is a bad thing. I think, if you wouldn't have had Paul in the band, or John, either one of them, if either of them wouldn't have been in the band, I don't think the band would have gotten to the level they did. Because those two together,
it's a give and take.
Yeah, they brought out such magic with each other, but also proved that they could do it on their own. You know, I mean, Paul to this day is still touring. Paul to this day is still putting out new albums. I'd like to think John would have been too if John would have not been murdered.
Probably not as much, but
yeah, John would have probably went the way of that George Harrison did, and even George Harrison's solo stuff is great. His first album, All Things Must Pass, was a triple record. George is like, well, the Beatles are over. Here's 3 albums. Like, really?
There's songs that I didn't get to put on Beatles albums. 3 or 4 of them songs I know there's demos of that were supposed to, hopefully maybe be Beatles songs.
Yeah, like isn't it a pity, My Sweet Lord?
Pity, yeah.
What is Life? And I remember My Sweet Lord. What's the song that it sounds like by? You know what I'm talking about.
Be My Baby by the Ronettes.
Thank you. That he bought the right. Yes. He bought the publishing to that song, so he didn't have to pay for using the melody in that song. Yeah,
I think you might be wrong. I think you're wrong about that.
No, he did that. I read an article about it. That
I thought that he got sued for it though. I thought he got sued.
He did.
Did he buy it after he got sued?
Yeah.
He bought it after he got sued.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
They came after him, and he's like, "I've got a solution." And so
I'll just buy it.
Right.
I'll just buy it.
Right. But All Things Must Pass was a great album, and so was I really liked Cloud 9 a lot. Dark Horse was another one. Like, and George, and it's really interesting when you listen to them all solo. You kind of see what each one of them brought to the band with the other guys not there. You kind of get to see where their influences were that, when you put all those together, made up what Beatles stuff was. Because even when you listen to Ringo's solo stuff, and Ringo's had some great solo stuff too. Photograph is an awesome song. It Don't Come Easy is awesome. He wrote, that's the one he wrote with George, right? Is It Don't Come Easy?
I think George wrote that one. He produced it for sure.
Yeah.
The No song. The No song.
Yeah. Now Ringo's stuff is definitely the more I don't want to say silly, because again, that sounds like an insult. Like, it's more carefree, I guess, and it's more like Ringo's stuff. You can definitely tell that out of the 4 of them, Ringo was the one that contributed ideas to the already begun stuff, if that makes sense. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Collaboration is important. But you can tell with Ringo's albums, a lot of other people wrote the hits that Ringo had, but Ringo put his own flair into them and his own, what he thought belonged in the songs that made those songs good,
His cover of the song You're 16 is the version that I really like, even though that song came out in the 50s, his version of it. And as I recall, I really wish I would have done some more research, because I remember that it wasn't Paul or John that had the first number 1 as a Beatle. It was George or Ringo, and I can't remember which one. It might have been Ringo. I can't remember. I could ask.
Hold on. I got the computer right here. I can look. Hold on.
Who had the first number 1 song with the Beatles solo?
We're gonna get sued now. I Want to Hold Your Hand was the first number 1 song.
I would just listen to her. I was saying for the solo, My Sweet Lord was the first solo by a Beatle.
Oh, I thought you meant
so.
Beatles.
It was George would have had the very My Sweet Lord though was the first solo number 1 by a Beatle.
Wow.
I thought it was George. I couldn't remember, but yeah, My Sweet Lord.
I'm surprised.
So maybe I'm first number 1.
I'm shocked that Maybe I'm Amazed wasn't a number 1 single. That's crazy.
Yeah,
wow. I mean, that's amazing. But also, My Sweet Lord is a phenomenal song, so I get it. It's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, and that album front to back, it's 3 records, but I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
It's such a good album with so many amazing guest stars and all that stuff. And while George had the shortest solo career, I think, didn't he? Or no, because Cloud9 was after John died. So
the shortest.
While John had the shortest solo career, as far as time frame, I think George put out less albums though. Like George was around longer, but John, I think, might have had more albums. Let me see. So
I have John over there, but I don't really want to walk over there. But I could count the albums because they're all over there. But I don't remember. I think John probably put out like 5 albums, probably 5 or 6 albums.
Oh, okay.
5.
Oh, yeah. George had
more. You
more.
can't count greatest hits.
Yep, George did have more. I just looked. Okay. So scratch that. But it seems though like George had less. I mean, it's because John had more hits out of his stuff.
He wasn't really around as much. He was so George was kind of like, there was a few albums there that I even was thinking like, wow. When I found them at the a garage sale, they had like 4 or 5 of them. I'm like, I don't remember 3 of these. I don't remember that time period because there wasn't any hits.
Right.
You know, one is called Going Tropico or something. And I'm like, what is that? But he really didn't come back around until actually when George died, the album that he had with this song called All Those Years Ago, which was 1981 when this song came out by George. It's a beautiful song. It's a song about his friend John. Those years ago. And that was his first kind of big hit to come back from the 70s. Didn't really have many hits. And then after that, he kind of gained steam, you know, and had a few hits here and there. And then Got My Mind Set on You was a big hit.
That was a great cover, though.
You know, yeah, it was. When We Was Fab was a good song. He had some good songs in the late 70s, too. I don't think that the mid-70s treated George well, even though...
No.
Well, he was going through an addiction, too, I hear. So
and George...
allegedly. Yeah.
George didn't play live much either, because I know he had a lot of struggles with his voice, and that touring would have been really hard for him. So I think that might have hindered him a little bit, too, because especially back then, if you didn't tour a lot, like, it was hard to get albums off the ground. You know what I mean? Whereas nowadays that doesn't even matter. But like, back then though, like George wasn't able to play live a lot, and John never did. John never toured. Yeah, like there's a couple live concerts he did, but he never like. Paul and Ringo are the only ones that toured and still do. Ringo's about to go back on the road right now. They just made a big press release about the All-Star Band. And he's going back on the road with him and Colin Hay and Steve Lukather and Edgar Winter and, you know, his All-Star Band, which is all I want to see that at least once. It looks so fun.
Do you realize that Ringo is 80 years old?
He's the oldest member, right?
Old.
He's the oldest member, right?
He's born 19. Yeah, him and George him and John were born in the same year, but Ringo was born earlier in the year.
Paul was the youngest, right?
No, George was the youngest.
Okay.
George was born in 1942 or 3, and then Paul was 42. So it's, And 40, 41, 42, somewhere around there, yeah. Do you think what happened if they were all to stay alive? Would there be a reunion by this time?
I think so. I really do, especially when they did that whole Grammy salute to the Beatles special and all that stuff. I think it would have happened. Would they have done like tours and stuff? I don't think so. I think we might have got a new album at one point, because right before John died, him and Paul had made up and become friends again and were hanging out, and they just weren't telling people because they didn't want people to think, you know, oh my God, the Beatles are going to get back together and blah, blah, blah. But it's funny because if I remember my Beatles history, right, when Lorne Michaels went on Saturday Night Live and made the offer for the Beatles to come, John and Paul were hanging out when that happened. And
they're
they're like,
almost thinking about doing it.
Wouldn't it be funny if we just showed up? They didn't.
Because Lorne Michaels offered them $1 million.
Yeah.
It was so cool at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
He held up a check for $1 million and says he's going to give
a real
them the
one.
check.
Like it was a real check. Like, here's $1 million. And like,
was it a real check? I don't remember.
Yeah.
It probably was. I don't remember.
Yep.
But I remember him holding the check.
It was, and I think it was because he knew there's no way in hell it was going to happen. So it was just funny.
But they're like, I remember reading the thing where they were like, yeah, maybe we should, we're thinking about actually doing that.
Yeah.
I've
and then they're like,
books.
Like they laughed about it for a minute and they're like, yeah, no. But like, and I get it though, because at the end of the day, the friendship is more important than a band. And the fact that they rekindled the friendship they had is, from back then, you don't want to bring the band back and risk ruining that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it is wonderful that they were able to be cool after all that, because there was some time that John and Paul were not okay with each other, and they were writing songs at each other, and like Paul wrote "Let Me Roll It," John did "How Do You Sleep," like, and it's just like it was before the East Coast West Coast rap battles. We had John Lennon and Paul McCartney having song battles at each other.
Yeah.
But I would put them, Lennon and McCartney, just to kind of put a bow on the episode. I would put them as probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest songwriting teams that ever existed. Ever.
Yeah.
Because, and again, not because all their stuff is the greatest music ever written, but because of what they achieved with it. Because of how much it influenced a world of musicians. You know what I mean?
Yes. What I would like to say about that, to wrap it up for me, is that of course people have opinions, and I totally agree with everybody.
And that's what our episode is all, just opinions too. That's just all ours is too.
Opinions.
Yep.
It really is all about opinions. It really is, and it's just we're doing this episode on the people that love the Beatles, and it's not to criticize people that don't.
No.
Even though those people are crazy or whatever, but it doesn't matter. I'm just joking with you. I'm just playing. You guys just don't know. You got to delve. But I do understand that people have different opinions and different. But I just got to say the influence that they had on people like me, like you, like everybody that loves the Beatles, the influence and the love that that I would say probably 65% of the world, when they had that Desert Island album, would probably want a Beatles album if they're in that generation of the Beatles.
Yeah.
If they're into Nine Inch Nails or whatever, that's cool too. But I mean, I feel like the music just brings so much joy to people that that's why I don't know. It's hard.
Trent was also Trent Reznor was a big Beatles fan too.
Trent Reznor, yes, for sure. But what I just wanted to say was that when it comes to Trent was influenced. Everybody was influenced. So I don't know I'll just wrap it up saying that, I understand people have different opinions, and this is just ours. And we just understand that, Beatles changed my life too, growing up, and music was very important to me because, I was kind of a loner and that kind of stuff. And the Beatles were really, so that's why I was going to get emotional there for a second, because Michael and the Beatles, those artists were, to me, like, that helped me. People growing up and going through their childhood and all that stuff. And whatever music does to you, music did that for me, and whoever I am today, was partially because that was part of my background my whole life. And that just, I'm so happy about that.
I think I'd like to end by recommending 2 albums that I think, if you're not really into their stuff, or maybe you haven't really explored it as much to really know, like, I know you'll agree with these 2 albums, because we think the same. I think if you want to try diving back in and really listening to what they're doing, go back and
Yes.
get Rubber Soul and Revolver. Those two albums were
There's Rubber Soul.
For those watching in the videos, and there's Revolver.
Here's Revolver.
For those, like, there's two eras of the Beatles, right? There's your top pop album Beatles, and then there's your psychedelic era and your more experimental. Rubber Soul and Revolver was the bridge between those.
Right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Right there in the middle.
Because right after that came Sgt. Pepper, you know. But I think those two albums are phenomenal examples of what every band member brings to the table, because they all have huge singles off of them. Because you got Taxman from George, you've got Yellow Submarine from Ringo, you've got In My Life from John, you've got
that's on Rubber Soul.
Yeah, I'm just saying of the two. Yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah.
You've got Got to Get You Into My Life. You've got Good Day Sunshine. You so many big songs.
Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta just keep one more. I mean, you did say a lot of them. I want to, and of course, Tomorrow Never Knows. Whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, too. I gotta say this because this is what I was thinking, and I don't know if I heard something and I've kind of just embellished it. But here's the thing about the Beatles with this period of time. Rubber Soul is when they met Bob Dylan, right? Revolver is when they smoked pot with Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
That's what it is. There you go. And if you can understand that, that's what if you can understand the meaning of what I just told you, that is the case. That is the case.
Yeah. And especially when you listen to the records knowing that, you hear it. You know what I mean?
Think about it. He was so influenced, John especially. I feel like John's album was Rubber Soul, because all those acoustic songs, he had Girl, he had In My Life, he had Norwegian Wood, he had a whole bunch of acoustic, very nice melodic songs. And that was, seriously, that's when he met Bob Dylan, right around 65. And that's when he started doing more of the acoustic songs and stuff like that. Yeah. Like those songs. And so, that's why I say that, because I think it's funny, but it's also true.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up today. We hope you enjoyed listening to our opinions on Beatles stuff. And like we were saying, nothing we're saying is factual. It's just what we think. It's how we feel about it.
Yes.
Both being very passionate music fans ourselves. I enjoy having conversations like this personally, and I hope everybody listening enjoys it too.
We're just like talking. We just do this talk thing and we just record it. That's pretty much what we're doing.
We hit record and say, let's talk about this. And then we just do.
We do this on the daily. So we don't even, we're recording right now, but we do this all the time.
Right. It's not like we're even making anything up early. We're like, what are we going to talk about today? Okay, cool. Let's go.
So let's do that.
Yeah. But also I want to let you know, we're going to be posting it on the PFC Entertainment Network page. We soon have our very own store coming, which will have Hanging with the Hitman merchandise you can get for yourself. T-shirts, hats, bobbleheads. I don't know. No, not really. But can you imagine?
That'd be cool.
I know, right? But definitely T-shirts.
Funkos.
Right. We need a Hitman Funko, I'm telling you. But so keep a lookout for that soon. Some really fun stuff coming with some slogans that we use and some like segment stuff and just some really cool stuff coming. So keep an eye out for that too. And we hope everybody has a fantastic week. And we will catch you all next Monday for another episode of Hanging with the Hitman. So until then, I am Todd Gilbert.
I am Brett Forney, the Hitman.
And we will see you all on the flip side.
Toodles.